So, with that being said, there has been some absolutely electric news happening in college football realignment. I'm sure that you guys have heard the news. Most of us do not live under a rock, but Colorado is returning back to the Big 12 conference. They were a team that was members of the Pac 12 for quite some time. They actually historically were members of the Big 12. They were there from 1996 to 2010. So, for those of you that are a little bit older, you remember a time that Colorado was actually in the Big 12 conference. But from 2011 to 2023, which will be their last year, they were members of the Pac-12, and starting the next season, the Big 12 conference, they are going to add the Colorado Buffaloes. So we'll go ahead and jump into the Big 12 first, and then we'll dive into what that could mean for the Pac-12 and what kind of implication that it could have on the self-proclaimed Conference of Champions. But diving into the Big 12 conference first, imagine losing two of the bigger brands in college football, Oklahoma and Texas. Some people may not consider them the top brand in college football, but Oklahoma and Texas, there's no denying they are extremely big brands that are going to the SEC. And yet the Big 12, in spite of losing Oklahoma, in spite of losing Texas as well, they're still going to be in a pretty solid position. They already have added Cincinnati, who did become the very first group of 5 team to make it to the college football playoff. They are also adding UCF, who has actually the highest enrollment in the United States in terms of number of college students that are on their campus as well. BYU is being added on to this list as well. They had some pretty good years as of recent. And then, of course, Houston is being added as well to help strengthen back up that Texas footprint. So they're losing Oklahoma and they're losing Texas. And those are big losses for any conference. But the Big 12, even though that they're losing arguably the two biggest brands in the Big 12 conference right now, they're going to be okay. The Big 12 is going to be okay because even without Oklahoma, even without Texas, this past college football season has shown that they can still get in to the college football playoff. There is still some high quality football. Last year's Big 12 championship game did not have Oklahoma or Texas in there. So they are more than capable of, as a national conference, they can continue to be relevant and be part of that national conversation. And while Colorado has not been good as of late, there is certainly a lot of buzz around that Colorado program right now. Deion Sanders, most notably, a big reason why there's a lot of buzz around this Colorado team, a lot of changes made to that roster, a much better roster than what they had in 2022. It's going to be interesting to see what happens to Colorado here in the final season that they are in the Pac-12 conference. Now, what this does do for the Big 12 conference is that when we get to 2024, as of right now, because we don't know what else is going to happen with college football realignment, we might be coming back here next week talking about some other realignments being announced. We just don't know what's happening in today's college football landscape. I would not be surprised if I'm coming back on here next week and talking about the Big 12 or some other conference, announcing some other news to you guys. It's just that wild right now. But the Big 12 will be at 13 teams as of right now at this current moment. So I would imagine that they are not going to want to have an odd number of teams, at least not long term. Nobody likes having an odd number of teams in their conference. I think we can all get behind that regardless of who we root for over the course of college football season. I think we can all get behind that, right? But that being said, I've heard some rumors about Arizona and Arizona State possibly being invited to the Big 12 conference, and we'll see if that comes into fruition or not. But if I'm the Big 12 commissioner and I'm looking for a 14th team, I'm honestly looking at Utah. I'm looking at giving Utah a call because, first and foremost, for those of you that watch this podcast for at least the first couple of episodes, you guys know I like having that regionality and traditions kept up as much as humanly possible, right? That's something that I truly care about. And adding Utah, you already have BYU in the conference joining up with the Cougars having their first year in the Big 12, but you get to have the Holy War in your conference. The Battle of Utah could be a nice little rivalry game to add on the Big 12 slate. And not to mention, Utah has just been a dang good football team. Utah hasn't made the college football playoff, but they went to the Rose Bowl in back-to-back years. Ohio State back in 2021, and then they took on Penn State in 2022. They lost both games, but, it takes a certain amount of special to make it to the Rose Bowl. And they did that because they won the Pac-12 the last couple of years. Again, they have not made it to the college football playoff yet, but they've been really close. So if I'm the Big 12, I'm looking to add Utah possibly to be that 14th team. And then if you want to go and add Arizona and Arizona State, to me, that's icing on the cake. Get yourself to that 16-team mark. And, I'm not saying that it will put them at the same level of a Big Ten as well as the SEC. Those are just on two different levels right now, but Big 12 would be in a really nice spot, regardless of if they just go to 14 teams or up to 16 teams. Now, on the flip side of that, we're looking at the Pac-12, and I don't want to be gloom and doom because I like the football that could be played out of Pac-12 this year. Pac-12 is going to have some amazing football here in 2023. There's a lot of intriguing storylines on the field. I'm not even talking about off the field. I am purely talking about on the football field. Right now, we could have some great football action out here in the Pac-12 conference. That could really happen, but we got to look at it from the lens of, okay, so before the last college football season, we saw them lose UCLA and USC. They are bolting for the Big Ten, and this season is going to be their last year in the Pac-12. They're all also losing Colorado, so they're down to 9 teams just like that. The only other conference at the FBS level that has 9 teams or less is Conference USA, and I gave my thoughts about Conference USA in the last pod. I think Conference USA is going to be the worst conference in college football this season for different reasons. Pac-12 will still have better football than that, but you don't want to be in the same conversation as Conference USA. I don't think anyone really wants that. No disrespect to anybody that does root for a Conference USA school. Don't get me wrong. But they're losing free schools already. We have rumors of Arizona and Arizona State possibly bolting for the Big 12. We also have Oregon and Washington being rumored to try to join the Big Ten as well. Get them up to 18 teams. So, and that's not to mention what's Utah thinking right now. What's Oregon State and Washington State thinking right now. Same with Cal. Same with Stanford. We might be seeing the beginning of the end. And so if I'm the Pac-12, first and foremost, got to get that media deal done as soon as possible. I don't know how much more desirable it's going to be now that there's even less of a product than what there was this time last week that we're talking about, but it's not looking good. So we might dive a little bit more in next week's pod about what the Pac-12 could do to try to bolster up that conference and get them back up to where it would make sense for them to have divisions and have a conference championship again at that 12-team mark. Man, we could be witnessing the beginning of the end of the Pac-12, and I don't know if I like it. I just don't know if I like it at all. But for Colorado, I understand where they're coming from. Historically, they were more known as a Big 12 team. Go off Kings, and wishing Colorado the best in the Big 12 next season. But that being said, Pac-12 still going to have some great football, but might be the last time that we are actually talking about the Pac-12 conference in that overall national conversation. Now, folks on the West Coast might still care about the Pac-12 after this season, but after this season, unless you live on the West Coast, I could see it to where a lot of people are just not going to care what's happening west of the Rocky Mountains. That's just how I read that situation out there. In terms of the college football realignment.